Hey there, welcome back to PonTIFFications, episode 4. I'm so glad that you decided to join me today and listen in to the things that I have to share with you. It's been about a month since I've posted my last PonTIFFications episode, and I've been missing it, if I'm honest. I had planned to do these maybe every couple of weeks, and I just got busy. Life got in the way, and I haven't been able to put one up until now. So thank you for being patient and for coming back to view. I guess if you follow me in the scrapbooking community, if you are a ScrapGals listener or if you're in the ScrapGals Facebook group, you already know that we hosted our very first retreat. Let's see, it would have been about 3 weeks ago now. It was the last weekend of April, and we held it in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'd never been there before, so it was kind of exciting to get to fly out and go out west in the U.S. I'd never been west of the Mississippi River before this trip, so that was something that was new and different for me, and it always surprises people to hear that I haven't traveled out west before, but honestly, it's because I've always gone to Europe when the opportunity to travel extensively has been offered to me. You know, it takes a long time to fly out west, and it's pretty expensive from where I live. And so I've always just spent my time and money and my effort to go across the pond, as they say. But I enjoyed it. I really liked getting to see a little bit of Salt Lake. I only had one day of sightseeing after the retreat was over, but it was so much fun. I got to spend it with some of my new friends. There were some ladies that allowed me to tag along with them, thanks. And we had a really fun time just kind of shopping around and stopping and taking some photos at some scenic spots and that kind of thing. Our very first retreat, I think, was a super success. I really do. I had a great time. I don't think I've ever talked more in my entire life. But, you know, it was a good mix, I think, of time to just crop versus time to visit versus time to shop versus time to eat. We had 3 classes. You know, I was really happy with the pacing of it and all the different things that we were able to do. And from what I hear from the ladies who came to the retreat, they felt the same way. They have all spoken really highly of the experience, and it was so neat to get to know some people like in real life, in person, versus just their online personas. I mean, I feel like I get to know people online, but it's different when you actually get to meet them and interact with them and hear their tone of voice and see their facial expressions and all of those kinds of things. So I feel really lucky that I was able to be a part of that. I taught my selfies class, and you know, I don't know if I helped them take better selfies, but they laughed and seemed to enjoy themselves during the class. So that was good. It's funny, I was really nervous before teaching my class. I'd actually never taught a class in person to a group of adults before. You know, I work with students all day, every day, and you would think that it's old hat for me. And once I got up there and I started going through my class and that kind of thing, it did feel pretty normal, pretty relaxed. But leading up to it, I have to admit, I was really nervous and almost psyched myself out a few times, but then I had to remind myself that, you know, these people are coming to this retreat in part because they want to learn something from me. They want to interact with me, and so like they're choosing to be here. I guess maybe I was looking at it from the perspective of, you know, a captive audience there against their will, but no, that's like my normal school day. That's not this event. So anyway, I know that the Nashville retreat for October of this year is already sold out, but Tracy and I have talked about doing 3 retreats next year, potentially at the end of April, sometime at the end of July, and again the first part of October. So we're playing around a little bit with those dates and the exact locations and that kind of thing. But if you're interested, I hope that you'll listen to the podcast and that you'll also join our Facebook community so that you'll be in the know when those retreat locations and dates are announced and when you can when you can sign up. I think that it's probably the neatest thing that we've done in conjunction with the podcast before. So beyond that, we are wrapping up the end of school. I am recording this on Mother's Day, so the evening of May 14th, which means that right at this moment, I have 8 days of school left for me. That means students only have 7 days of school left. I mean, not that I'm counting or anything like that. But I have an awful lot to do in the next 8 days. I mean, I'm excited that it's winding down and that we've almost reached the end of my 23rd year of teaching. But I have a to-do list that is like this long, you know? And so I just have to kind of be disciplined at work and go through systematically and kind of methodically make sure that I get everything finished. You know, there are all kinds of things for the extra programs that I'm involved in, like the after-school tutoring and my adult night class. But then there are other things with students. You know, there are awards and there are grades to be finalized, and there are graduation kinds of things and makeup work and meetings with guidance and meetings with parents and meetings with students and all kinds of things. So it starts to feel a little overwhelming, you know, if I like focus too much on the never-ending list. But if I just break it down into chunks, hopefully we'll all survive it. I mean, I've done this 22 other years. Surely I can get it together and get it done this year too. It's just like, you know, my final exams start on Friday and I haven't made any of them yet. So I guess I should probably get on that pretty soon, huh? So once school winds down, of course, the very next thing that I'll be doing is getting ready to go on my big trip this summer. And I've got, you know, 2 weeks where I'll be traveling with students, and then I'll be traveling by myself for another 6 weeks after that. So super, super exciting, but I have to say, I have not researched the locations I'll be visiting as much as I would have liked to. And so I'm telling myself that, you know, once final exams begin, for example, and I'm just staring at a room full of kids taking a test, I'll have a chance to look through some of those tour books and some of the websites that I enjoy and really get some, like, you know, some concrete plans down for what I'm going to do while I'm traveling by myself particularly. But, you know, the fact that I've put it off, you know, kind of here at the end does make me a little nervous, I have to say. Now, thankfully, I have my flights all worked out, and I have my lodging all worked out. You know, I've reserved all of the hotels and apartments where I'll be staying. I have my flight from Paris to Budapest already booked. And then this week I also plan on going ahead and booking my train fares. I like to go ahead and do that ahead of time as much as possible so that I don't have to make a bunch of trips to do that while I'm in a particular city. And once I have those all lined up, I think I'll feel a little more secure. It's just I don't know what I'm going to do in those cities yet other than wander around and, you know, eat fabulous food and stop and drink at cafes and take photos. But you know what? If I don't do anything else but those things in those cities, that would be perfectly okay. So I'm going to try not to stress too much about that. I had somebody, you know, speaking of traveling, I had somebody mention, I think it was here on one of my YouTube videos, it was Connie, and she said that she wanted me to elaborate a little bit on the style of French women. I think that in another episode of PonTIFFications, I had sort of waxed poetic about how I thought that the style of the French was very interesting, that I admired it very much, that I thought French women were very chic, and I didn't really elaborate, I guess, on why I feel that way. And so that's something that Connie asked me to talk about a little bit. And you know, it's a great question, but it's one of those things that's hard to put in words. The French would say je ne sais quoi, you know, the I don't know what it is, hard to put into words. But I guess I would say that French women don't seem to be as artificially done as American women do sometimes. And I'm not saying that I'm not guilty of the same thing, so please don't take it that way. But it's just like French women seem to be effortlessly chic. They don't look very artificial. They don't look very done up. You know, I know that's a strange way to put it, but that's how we say it here in the South. They don't look like they're trying too hard. And I really admire that. They seem to sort of put themselves together in the morning, and then they live their lives the rest of the day on the metro and walking the streets and taking taxis, and the wind is messing up their hair, and they're dealing with the rain, and they're dealing with, you know, crowds of people, and they just don't seem to be fussing too much with their appearance or feel the need to do so, you know. And I feel like American women, in contrast, often do seem to be very made up. We wear more makeup than our European counterparts. Our hair is more styled, like, you know, wrangled into submission kind of thing. I mean, not my hair right now, obviously, but as a general rule, I think Americans wear their hair in a more fixed way. It feels like we use a lot more product in terms of like makeup and jewelry and hair. We seem to work harder at it than our French counterparts, and I don't think that we always look very great. I mean, you know, I don't know what that is. I don't know if maybe French women seem to have a kind of confidence that American women struggle to emulate. I don't know if this is completely my perception and doesn't have any real grounding in fact, in reality. You know, I mean, I guess perception is reality, but you see what I mean. Perhaps it is the fact that I admire them that makes me see them in such a complimentary way, maybe more so than they deserve. I don't know. When I think about the way French women dress, I think of them as wearing clothing that is very simple and classic, and clothing that fits extremely well. To me, most French women look as if they've been to a tailor for every outfit that they wear. I know that they have fewer clothing in general, but I think that many French women buy clothing maybe that is more finely made, and then perhaps they spend the extra to have it tailored and laundered and that sort of thing, which makes their clothes, you know, just seem to be finer. I also think that maybe French women are better at dressing for their bodies rather than for trends, you know. And maybe it's the fact that I think that, you know, most French women that I've encountered are quite thin. They have lovely skin. They seem to just sort of glide through life in this very feminine yet strong and capable way. I don't know. I mean, and maybe this is just part of my love affair of things French. You know, maybe I am looking at it through rose-colored glasses per se, and that's not what other people see. But I would be interested to hear if other people who have traveled to Paris in particular feel that way about French women and their style. You know, if they would agree with me or not. I don't see French women wearing a lot of busy prints. I don't see French women wearing, you know, giant handbags or sloppy backpacks or, you know, scuffed shoes. It seems to me that the details are impeccably selected, but then once a French woman is dressed, she just goes about her life and she doesn't have to think about it anymore. Whereas, you know, I'm the person, I'm like, oh, is my bra strap showing? Or oh, this bag is making my dress look weird. Or, oh my gosh, these shoes are making my toes hurt. Or, you know, it feels to me a lot of times like I am thinking about whether my clothing or my hair or my makeup or whatever, whether it's appropriate or whether it's attractive or acceptable for the situation that I'm in. And I don't get that vibe from French women when I'm interacting with them just on a very surface level in the city. Now, that being said, I am mostly considering French women who are maybe, I don't know, over the age of 30. I mean, I'm like looking at other grown-ups and like trying to see what it is about their style that I think is lovely, or that I want to try to emulate myself. And so I know that since I've visited there, since I spent some time there in 2015, I think maybe I have unconsciously tried to incorporate some of those things that I admire, you know, in my own wardrobe. So I am wearing more solids. I've begun wearing more and more scarves. I've chosen some signature pieces that are very classic, that I know that work for my style and my body and my age, and I wear them, and I don't worry about whether I wear them too much, you know, and that kind of thing. And so, you know, maybe those are good choices because they make me feel more confident as a result. But you know, gosh, if somebody told me on the street here in the US, you know, oh, you look very French or something, I would think that was like the best compliment on the planet, you know. And there's really not anything about the style of French women in general that I wouldn't admire. Well, okay, I'll take that back. There's one caveat. They do seem to primarily smoke a lot, you know, and so that's not something that I would want to emulate or encourage in others because it's bad for you. But you know, pretty much everything else, what they wear and how they comport themselves, even the way they sit in a chair at a cafe and sip coffee is pretty elegant. And I would love if other people thought that perhaps I too was elegant. I don't know what chance I have at that. I think I might be a little bit too goofy, but I'm working on it. You know, maybe when I grow up, I'll be a little more elegant than I am now. Let's see, somebody else, and I think this was maybe my friend from Vienna, maybe Paula? I can't remember for sure who it was, I'm sorry. But someone asked me what my current projects were. Like what am I working on that is crafty or that is in scrapbooking right now. And so I've got a few things in the fire. The first thing that I'm doing is I'm still working on the 100-day project, and I'm posting that on Instagram. Every now and then I remember to post in our Facebook community, but I have to be honest, it's like all I can remember to actually do the project and then to put it on Instagram, so my apologies there. But the 100-day project, for those of you who are not familiar, is something that creative types kind of do. Now, I give Elise Blaha-Kripe credit for starting this, but I could totally be wrong. She's just the first person that I know that engaged in this particular project. But the idea is that you spend 100 days working on one particular aspect of your creativity to kind of create a new habit, you know, to stretch yourself, to grow, to become more creative, to try maybe a different medium of artistry, whatever. So I decided that I wanted to learn to draw. I've always wanted to draw, but I've never really approached it very seriously. And I decided that for my 100-day project, what I wanted to do was to sketch a different picture every day. And I'm getting most of my inspiration from Pinterest. And so I started a Pinterest board called the 100-day project. And what I do is I look for different art pieces or photographs or paintings or collage or whatever, and I'll pin whatever this thing is, and then I try to sketch it out. And most days I take a photograph of my sketch right next to the inspiration piece on my laptop or iPad screen from Pinterest. And so the idea is that I don't have to come up with something to draw, because I think that that's pretty difficult to do. I don't think I'm ready to do that yet. Instead, what I'm trying to do is to mimic someone else's work in a way that helps me be able to draw what I see. And it has not been easy. I mean, I have to be honest. Drawing, I don't think is something that comes very naturally to me, but it's something that I really want to be able to do. I really have this passion to be able to imagine something and then to be able to draw it and then to use that in some artistic way, like maybe in a traveler's notebook, or maybe to paint it and hang it in my house, or maybe to create a stitching piece or something. You know, I want to be able to do that. I want to have that flexibility and that freedom, that if there's some image that I want that isn't available to me, well, then I can just draw it and make it myself. And so I've had a lot of fun with it. I mean, I really love to draw people, but I think people are really difficult to draw. And so I've been practicing drawing women in particular. I've practiced drawing little girls, you know, because I have a daughter. I've practiced drawing wiener dogs, you know, because I love wiener dogs. And so it's been a really good experience, but it has been kind of hard to keep up with. I mean, it is pretty much a commitment. And between traveling and then some other kind of hard things that have gone on in the last few weeks, I haven't always been able to keep up with it like I wanted to. The 100-day project actually started on April 4th, and like, I don't know why that's the day. I mean, it's just when everybody said, okay, it's time to start. And so I am pretty well caught up, but sometimes I have to draw 2 or 3 days worth at one time, or sometimes I draw every day, but then I don't think about like taking a picture of it and posting it on Instagram. And so sometimes I post those in batches. And I kind of beat myself up about that a little bit. And then I decided that that really wasn't the point of the project. That the point of the project is like to encourage you to develop this creative habit, not to like make yourself feel horrible if you're not perfect every day. And so I've given myself a little bit of forgiveness there. You know, I've said to myself, okay, you know, this is Mother's Day weekend. You have been crazy busy. You can catch up on your sketching tomorrow. It's okay. And so if you are interested in the 100-day project, well then I would tell you a couple things. First of all, you can start anytime you want to. I mean, like, there's no rule book, there's no prize involved. I mean, you're doing this just for yourself and your own creativity. So I would say, hey, decide something you want to do and start it tomorrow, or start it, you know, Wednesday afternoon at 3:07 p.m. Whatever interests you is certainly doable. And then maybe you're not ready to play along, but you would like to kind of check out what other people are doing. Well, you're welcome to follow me on Instagram. I'm at loudertiff on Instagram, and I've been posting my projects. I'm also posting my projects in 2 or 3 week increments on my blog. I mean, so you could go there, certainly. That's TiffanyLouder.com. You could also like go to Instagram and do a search for the one that the ScrapGals are doing is the 100-day project _ScrapGals, I think, or something like that. I mean, you could probably put most of that in and it would pop up as a hashtag. But there are other people who are doing it that just call it like hashtag 100-day project or hashtag 100 days. And so you might be able to go and get some real inspiration there. There is a girl, a lady, a woman who's in our scrapbook community who has been doing, she designs a different project life card every day for 100 days. And they are so awesome, you know, so I think that's really cool. You know, I've seen people who are taking a different kind of photograph every day, like they're trying to teach themselves macro photography, for example. I've also seen some examples of people who are, you know, making a scrapbook page every single day. I mean, there are a lot of options available to you. I just think it's a really neat idea, and it's something that, you know, being able to post in the community, being able to share my work with other people certainly keeps me accountable to the project and to you guys, but it also kind of encourages me to know that I'm not the only one who's doing this, you know, to know that I'm kind of in this process with a lot of other people too. So that's one of the projects that I have in the works. The other project that's kind of big that I have in the works is I am working on my second online class. I had a really good experience in making and releasing my very first online class, which was, it was called Memory Trip, and it was about documenting a very old family vacation in a traveler's notebook. I decided to document the first time that we had taken my daughter to Disney in 1996, I believe it was. 1996, yeah. So it was 21 years ago, and I had these photos and I'd never done anything with them. It was one of those things that kind of gnawed at me, like I felt a responsibility to tell those stories and to share those photos, but I was reluctant to do so because it was such an old trip, and because the pictures were not very good, and because, I mean, let's be real, my ex-husband was in a bunch of the photos. I mean, and so it's like, do I really want to spend my time scrapbooking that? Well, ultimately, I decided that the story was important enough that it needed to be told in spite of those hurdles. And so I turned that into a class. I realized that I certainly couldn't be the only person who had stories like that, and then, you know, you'd know what to do with them or how to approach them or how to overcome some of those obstacles. And so, you know, I had a really good response. People who have bought the class have seemed to really like it. They have said that, you know, the class is helpful whether you're documenting a specific trip or whether you're working in a traveler's notebook or whether maybe you just have some hurdles to overcome with another set of photos. So I was really pleased to hear that, and I kind of challenged myself to maybe, you know, release another class. And I'd love to get it done before I travel, but I mean, I don't know if that's going to be possible. So it might come out at the beginning of June, or it might be the middle of July. You know, you'll just have to kind of stay tuned for information about that. But basically, I'm going to take one trip, you know, because travel's my thing. I'm going to take one trip, my time in Paris in the summer of 2015, and I'm going to document that trip in 3 different ways. I'm going to document it in a 12 by 12 mixed style album. I'm going to document it in a planner style mini album, and I'm going to document it in a traveler's notebook. And so I'm calling this class One Trip, 3 Ways. And I think that it's a really great opportunity for you to kind of figure out for maybe some really big trips or maybe, you know, kind of a once in a lifetime sort of event that you experienced, how you want to tell those stories and why. Like, what does each of those formats offer you as a documenter of your life story? You know, why would you choose one instead of another, or a combination of those options? Why would you do that? And of course, I'm actually doing all 3, you know, so you're getting 3 different formats that will be telling different stories of the same event, so that maybe you can stretch yourself and consider doing the same thing. I'm really excited about it, and I'm off to a good start, but it's just going to be kind of a time crunch thing. I mean, is it possible for me to get it done before I leave for Europe? Maybe, but you know, I make no promises. In terms of other projects, I have to be honest, I haven't really done any other scrapbooking other than that. Working on that class. I am doing a little bit of stitching. I finished my Pretty Little Italy stitching. That's it's about, you know, 5 by 7 or 8 by 10 or so. I finished that this past week. That was a design that I bought from Satsuma Street on Etsy. They're a fabulous shop. But anyway, I shared that on Instagram, and you know, I'm really pleased to have that finished. So I had been itching to try some of the little embroidered necklaces that you can do, and that's what I'm playing with right now. I haven't started a new large stitching project, but I'm sure I will before I begin traveling, because I like to have something like that with me that I can work on very easily, like on the airplane or on trains or buses and or that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm playing around a little bit with the embroidered necklaces, and I'll be choosing a big kind of cross-stitch project to work on at some point in the next couple of weeks. I do want to work on telling some more stories in a traditional scrapbook format of like a 12 by 12 layout, but honestly, I haven't really had the time to devote to it with all these other little things that I'm working on. And so I'm kind of toying with the idea of starting another little traveler's notebook as a listing point where I can kind of keep track of some of the most important stories that I want to tell. I mean, I've laughed at Tracy before in the podcast for like having the never-ending list of layout ideas. So I recognize that this is both hypocritical and ironic that I'm now saying, maybe I should do that. But there is some merit to it because I've been drawn lately to some older photos and telling some older stories, and I haven't done all of those things. Maybe it started when I did the load layout for Alice Bowl in her Scrap Happy group, but I don't know. I would just like to, I would like to tell some of the stories that seem to be kind of nagging the edge of my conscience, because for me, there's a reason that those are on my mind. I might not know what the reason is, and I might not, recognize why that story is important to tell right now. But if I'm thinking about it, then there has to be a reason that it's on my mind, that it's kind of at the forefront of my thoughts and my memories. And so if I'm not going to take the time right now to actually make those pages, or if I don't have the time before I leave and travel, then at least if I could jot down what those ideas are, that might make me more likely to actually follow through when I do get home, towards the end of July. I'll be gone for like 8 weeks, but when I come home, I'll have about 3 weeks before school begins in the fall. So that should be pretty nice, that I'll have some time to get creative and do that kind of thing then. Now, I had talked a little bit in the podcast about potentially scrapbooking my trip this summer by using the Project Life app. We had that show where we talked with Becky Higgins, and she shared a little bit of her thought process and approach and reasoning for the Project Life app. And I did download it, and I played with it a little bit while I was on my trip to Utah. I'd be lying in bed at night in the hotel, and I couldn't shut my brain off, so I'd play on my phone with the Project Life app some. Now, I haven't finished any layouts, so don't be like, oh my gosh, you've got to show them to us. No, I haven't finished any yet, but I did play with it some, and I like that it seems to be pretty intuitive. And then last weekend for International Scrapbooking Day, I don't know if you saw, but all of their kits in the Project Life app were 99 cents. And a lot of them, I think, are like $1.99 or $2.99 regular price. And so I went through and I went a little crazy. I bought like $20 worth of stuff because, they were 99 cents each, right? And I'm glad I did that, because even if I don't start scrapbooking in that particular format a lot, I can still print out those cards, So I feel like that was probably a good way to spend 20 bucks, plus now I have no excuses, right? I have different templates, I have different layout options, I have all these different cards to choose from. When I get ready to actually scrapbook this trip this summer, there should be nothing that stands in my way. So, fingers crossed that works out. I wanted to mention, so I have my little list here and I'm referencing it as I talk to you, but I wanted to mention something that one of my followers, Janice, asked me. She was talking about, and I think this was actually in the ScrapGals Facebook community where I posted a link to one of my PonTIFFications videos, but she mentioned that she lives in a place where she is in the minority in terms of her political convictions, and that she's faced with a situation pretty frequently where her friends are talking about politics and they are They are obviously on the other side of the spectrum from where she is. And I don't know if Janice is liberal or conservative. I don't know. But whatever, they're on the opposite end of the spectrum than she. And she asked me what I thought about how she could like share her feelings about issues when her friends directly question her or ask her to do so without alienating them and without being hypocritical. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know why you're asking me this, because maybe I alienate people all the time and don't know it. But I understand totally, because where I live and work, most people are on the other side of the political spectrum than I am. And it always surprises people that maybe I don't agree exactly with the way they think or the way they see things. But whenever possible, I just don't talk about divisive issues with my friends, you know, and I understand that that's easier said than done, particularly given today's political climate, and as more and more people are interested in politics and the news, and you can get your news from so many different sources and that kind of thing. So I understand that that answer doesn't always fly. So, you know, when I find myself in a situation where people that I know see things differently than I do, I'm honestly usually more of a listener than more of a speaker. Because even if I disagree with them, I do think that there is something that I can learn from listening to what it is they have to say. You know, maybe I can understand why they believe something that they believe, and perhaps it's even something that I had not considered. Or maybe I, you know, will hear a nuance of an argument that I hadn't heard before. And usually that works, because most people who are willing to talk about things like that really just, they want to do the talking. You know, they don't necessarily want to hear what other people have to say, but sometimes that's not true. And so I have been in situations where very close friends have asked me what I think about certain topics, and where colleagues or people who I would consider more acquaintances and not personal friends, you know, there's a difference between a professional friend and a personal one, where those people have asked me my opinion as well. And if they press me for it, then the first thing that I generally say is, well, you might not know this, but I really see this particular issue very differently than you do. So that's kind of like the little red flag warning, you know, that, okay, you've asked me, I'm reluctantly agreeing to respond to you. I'm warning you that I'm probably not going to say something that you thought I would say or that you'll agree with. Because, I don't know, I just feel like if you preface your remarks like that, people might not take it as kind of a personal offense that you don't agree with them, you know? So, and then a lot of times I'll say, are you sure we want to talk about this? Because, I mean, I don't want it to make our friendship weird just because we disagree. And most people, you know, by this point are like, yes, tell me. They think it's going to be, you know, something dramatic or provocative or whatever. And then I'll go ahead and I'll tell them what I think. And, you know, I'll elaborate a little bit on my reasoning. And then usually by the end of whatever it is I'm saying, I'll say something like, you know, I understand from what you've already said that you don't see this issue the same way, and I get it. I can live with that. Just as sort of a, I'll do me, you do you, we'll still be friends, it's still okay. And sometimes people like to leave it right there because they realize that we see things so differently that it's not going to be helpful to continue the conversation. Other times, you know, I have friends who ask me questions. Well, why do you believe that? Or what about this? Or haven't you considered this? And as long as they're being respectful and kind, then I'll continue the conversation and give them, you know, my perspective as best I can. But here's the most important part. And I don't love this, but I think that it's true. I never enter into a political discussion with my friends under the illusion that I'm going to change their mind. I just don't think that happens very often. And so if it becomes a crusade for me, like if I'm like, oh, my goal is to convince her that she is wrong and I'm right, that's when I think people get angry and your friendships suffer, really. If I approach it instead of, okay, you want to know, I'll tell you what I think and I'll tell you my reasoning, but I don't expect anything from you as a result, then it usually goes better, And so I guess, Janice, that's like my long spiel to just say, I wouldn't be ashamed to share your thought processes and your reasoning for the way you feel about certain topics. But I would also caution you to make sure that you realize it's not your job to convince someone else of your line of thinking. It's possible that a kind conversation that is, not guarded, that is not yelling or overly persuasive or trying to attack the person's character, it's possible that something that you share will make that person reconsider his or her position or perspective later on. And if that happens, I think that's awesome. I think that that's ideal. But I'm not one of those people who believes that other adults are easily swayed by my perspective. They're going to have to find their truth and what they can believe in and live with in their own time. I prefer to be quiet because I don't like to put myself in situations of conflict. I don't like the idea of something, maybe turning into a shouting match or someone not wanting to be my friend or to work with me because we differ so much on some particular issue. But I also feel, kind of like you mentioned in your message, that to never say anything is kind of in itself hypocritical, So there's that fine line to kind of watch and to try to be true to who you are, but not to offend other people too. I also would say that, you might try to phrase things in terms of, well, this is how it makes me feel, or if I were in that position, this is how I would want to be treated, or have you ever considered, when you phrase things as if they're affecting you personally, or if you ask other people questions about how they might feel in a particular position, that's much less of an attack against their character and their belief system than someone who goes, well, that's wrong, let me tell you how it is. It's all about kind of in the delivery and in your approach to the other person. And I don't know what your personality style is or what your approach is to discussion or conflict or anything like that. But I will tell you that if it's something that I feel so strongly about that I cannot be kind, then I'm not going to have the conversation with other people who I know disagree with me. And thankfully, there aren't that many issues that are that hot button for me. But if you're super passionate about something and you cannot possibly consider someone else's perspective, that may not be the best topic of conversation for you and your friends to have, because it may end up being more divisive than in bringing you together. So those would just kind of be my tips in terms of how to navigate the landmine of political conversation with friends. I'm not an expert for sure, so take that, for what you paid for it. But I do hope that more people who differ in their opinions can at least talk about issues with people so that we can consider other points of view and other perspectives. I feel very strongly about a lot of things, but the thing I feel most strongly about is that most people want the same thing ultimately for themselves and their families. You know, they want to feel safe, and you know, they want to feel like they have a chance. And if we can, I don't know, if we can find that common ground, then surely there are a few other things we can agree on too. I mean, but you know, I'm kind of an idealist. I think it's my Instagram profile that says I'm an idealist masquerading through life as a cynic. Don't hurt my unicorn or take my rose-colored glasses away from me. Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. I do. I am this sunny idealist who pretends that I'm jaded by everything. So I don't know. Maybe I'm not the best person to ask any of those questions. Okay, so let's see. Are those all of my things? I think those are all of the topics that I wanted to talk about today. I have no idea how long I've been talking. I covered up like the part of my phone where I can see myself as I'm talking to you, so that maybe I would be able to like be more focused and not be so distracted by like, you know, like a weird eyebrow or something. So I don't know if that helped or not, but I hope so. But that also means I can't see how long I've been talking. So this might be a really short pontifications, or might be about average, or might be super long. Who knows? Time has ceased to exist while I have joined you guys and just chatted for a little while. I hope that you enjoyed our various little bits of conversation today, and that there are some things that maybe gave you some food for thought. I hope that you'll follow me on social media, on Instagram at loudertiff, or that you'll join our Facebook community for the ScrapGals community, and that you'll listen to our ScrapGals podcast if you haven't already. It is thescrapgals.com. We have more than 150 episodes already, so if you are a new listener, you have a lot of things to listen to. And of course, I hope that you'll keep coming back here and checking out new videos, and subscribe to my channel and give me a thumbs up and all of those things. I have missed talking with you this last month, and I'm glad that I made some time to record episode number 4 today. So until I talk with you again, I hope you'll go and be crafty.